Imagine a young woman, mocked and underestimated, her every move scrutinized and dismissed as weak, until one heart-stopping moment where she unleashes a single strike that sends 6 battle-hardened Marines crashing to the ground. How did she transform from the underdog to a force of nature? Dive into this electrifying tale of grit, betrayal, and jaw-dropping triumph. And they called her weak in training, so she took down 6 Marines with 1 strike. Subscribe now to unlock this gripping story and more tales of unstoppable heroes. In the sweltering heat of Camp Pendleton, where the sun beat down like a relentless drill sergeant, Private First Class Elena Voss stood in the training yard, her boots sinking slightly into the dusty earth, her face flushed with exertion and the sting of humiliation, as the other recruits snickered behind her, their whispers slicing through the air like shrapnel, calling her weak, scrawny, a liability who'd never make it through the grueling Marine Corps training. But Elena, with her wiry frame and unyielding hazel eyes, ignored the taunts, her mind a fortress of determination, recalling the promise she made to her late father, a decorated Marine who'd died in combat when she was 12, vowing to honor his legacy by proving herself in the Corps, even as her drill instructor, Sergeant Malone, a towering man with a voice like gravel, barked at her to drop and give him 50 push-ups, his sneer suggesting he expected her to collapse after 10, and as she pushed through the pain, her arms trembling but refusing to give out, she overheard Malone mutter to another instructor that she'd wash out by week's end, a prediction that fueled her resolve like gasoline on a fire, because Elena wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for every underdog who'd ever been underestimated, every person told they weren't enough, and deep down, she carried a secret. A technique her father had taught her in their backyard sparring sessions, a move he called the Phantom Strike, a devastating blend of precision, leverage, and raw power that could topple even the strongest opponent with a single blow, but she kept it hidden, biding her time, knowing the training camp was a crucible that would either break her or forge her into something unstoppable, and as the weeks dragged on, the taunts grew louder, her fellow recruits, 6 burly men in particular, led by a cocky recruit named Baxter, never missed a chance to mock her, tripping her during obstacle courses, accidentally knocking her gear into the mud, their laughter echoing as she scrambled to recover. Yet Elena endured, her silence mistaken for weakness, her restraint for cowardice, but what they didn't know was that she was studying them, memorizing their movements, their habits, their weaknesses, like a predator sizing up prey, and during hand-to-hand combat drills, she let them overpower her, taking the bruises, absorbing the pain, all while perfecting her Phantom Strike in secret, practicing late at night in the shadows of the barracks, her fists slicing through the air with lethal precision, because she knew the real test wasn't in the drills. It was in the moment no one saw coming, and that moment arrived during the final week of training, a brutal exercise called the Gauntlet, where recruits faced off in a no-holds-barred sparring match against multiple opponents, designed to push them to their limits. And as fate would have it, Elena was pitted against Baxter and his 5 cronies, the same 6 who'd tormented her from day one, their smirks radiating confidence as they circled her in the ring, the entire platoon watching, Malone's eyes glinting with cruel anticipation, expecting her to crumble, but Elena felt a calm settle over her, the world slowing as she recalled her father's words. The strongest weapon is the one they never see, and as Baxter lunged first, his fist aimed at her jaw, she sidestepped with a grace that stunned the crowd, her body moving like water, fluid and untouchable, and in that split second, she unleashed the Phantom Strike, her fist connecting with Baxter's sternum, the impact sending a shockwave through his body, his eyes widening as he staggered back, collapsing to his knees, gasping for air. But Elena didn't stop, her movements a blur as she spun, her elbow catching the second Marine in the temple, dropping him instantly, and with a sweep of her leg, she took out the third, her strikes precise, each one a calculated explosion of force, the crowd falling silent as the 4th Marine charged, only to meet her palm striking his chin, snapping his head back, and as the 5th and 6th came at her together, she ducked under their blows, her body a coiled spring, and with a single, sweeping motion, she delivered a double-handed strike to their midsections, sending them sprawling to the ground, the entire sequence lasting less than 10 seconds, 6 Marines down, the training yard frozen in disbelief, Malone's jaw slack, the recruits' taunts replaced by stunned silence, but the twist no one saw coming was that Elena's victory wasn't just about physical strength, it was about exposing a deeper betrayal, because as she stood over the fallen Marines, catching her breath, she noticed a glint of recognition in Baxter's eyes, a flicker of guilt, and later that night, in the barracks, she confronted him, demanding answers, and under pressure, he confessed. Malone had orchestrated the harassment, instructing Baxter and his crew to break her spirit, a test to see if she'd crack, a cruel setup sanctioned by the higher-ups to weed out the weak. But what they hadn't counted on was Elena's resilience, her ability to turn their cruelty into her strength. And as word of her triumph spread, it wasn't just the recruits who revered her. Malone's superiors took notice, launching an investigation into his methods, and Elena, once the outcast, became a legend in the Corps. Her Phantom Strike whispered about in awe, but the deeper twist came months later, when she discovered a letter hidden in her father's old footlocker, revealing that the Phantom Strike wasn't just a technique. It was a legacy passed down through generations of warriors, a secret kept by a clandestine order within the Marines, and her father had been one of its last members, his death no accident but a targeted hit to silence him, and now Elena, having proven herself, was being watched by the same shadowy group. Her victory in the gauntlet not just a personal triumph but a signal to them that she was ready to inherit her father's mission, a mission that would take her beyond the Corps into a world of covert operations and hidden truths, where her strength, once mocked, would become the key to unraveling a conspiracy that threatened the very heart of the military she'd sworn to serve. And as she stepped into this new chapter, her hazel eyes burned with purpose, no longer the weak recruit but a warrior forged in fire, ready to strike again, her story just beginning, a tale of vengeance, redemption, and the unbreakable will of a woman who turned weak into a word her enemies would never forget.